First of all, you remember maybe a month ago we talked about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and what happened to them. They were told, everyone in the land was told, to bow down and worship a golden statue. But of course they refused, because that would be wrong, even though everyone around them was doing it. And they were thrown into the furnace of fire. But God sent his angel and rescued them. This story is similar. So I want you to think about how this might be similar and how it might be different while we go through this story. And if I call it a story, I should say it's in a historical account. It's not a made-up story that somebody just wrote down. This actually happened. So let me give you a little background to Daniel. This is in the book of Daniel in the Old Testament. Daniel was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were all taken captive from Israel, taken to the land of Babylon. Let's see. Daniel was so good in the government that the king was, this time was King Darius, not Nebuchadnezzar anymore. So he was made head over one of three, over 120 different governors over the kingdom, over the whole land. But Daniel was over the 120. He was one of three supervisors of all the governors. So he was very high up. And he was distinguishing himself so well, he did so well, that the king was intending to make him head over the whole land next to the king, of course. But, of course, this made the other governors and supervisors very jealous. They had to think of something to do with Daniel. So these supervisors and governors were trying to find an accusation against Daniel in connection with government affairs, but they were unable to find any damaging evidence because Daniel was trustworthy and he wasn't guilty of any corruption. So these men concluded, we won't find anything against this man Daniel unless it is in connection with the law of his God. So they went to the king, some of these men, these governors, and they said, "Oh, King Darius, live forever." To all the supervisors of the kingdom, it seemed like a good idea for a royal edict to be issued. For the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human other than you, O king, should be thrown into a den of lions. So let the king issue a written law so that it cannot be changed. So the king did. He did what they asked. So what did Daniel do? When Daniel knew that a written decree had been issued, he continued kneeling 3 times a day, praying and giving thanks to his God, just as he had been doing previously. Then those officials who had gone to the king plotted together, and they went and found Daniel praying and asking for help before his God. You can see them on the right side of the picture there. They found Daniel praying just as he always did. He knew what the right thing would be to do, would be to continue praying. And notice also that he was giving thanks. You would be amazed how many times it says that we're supposed to give thanks in Scripture. Obviously not just once a year on Thanksgiving, whether we celebrate and have a big meal or not. We're supposed to give thanks all the time to God. Okay, so they found him praying. And of course, they went to the king, these men. Did you not issue a law, O king, that for the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or human other than you, O king, would be thrown into a den of lions? The king replied, that is true, and the law cannot be changed. They had a very strict law that if the king issued a decree, it was set in stone. It could not be changed. So then the men said, Daniel, who was one of the captives from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or to the decree which you signed. 3 times daily he offers his prayer. When the king heard this, he was very upset and began thinking about how he might rescue Daniel. Until late afternoon, he was struggling to find a way to rescue him. But then those men came and said, remember, O king, that it is a law of the Medes and the Persians that no edict or decree that the king issues can be changed. And this was true. The king was stuck because it couldn't be changed, even though he made the law himself. So the king had to give the order, and Daniel was brought and thrown into a den of lions. Now this would have been a pit underground where the lions were, where people were actually thrown in. The king said to Daniel, your God, whom you continually serve, will rescue you. Then the king went off to his palace. But he spent the night without eating, and no entertainment was brought to him. He was unable to sleep. Meanwhile, Daniel was in the den of lions. In the morning, at the earliest sign of daylight, the king got up and rushed to the lion's den. As he approached the den, he called out to Daniel in a worried voice, "Daniel, servant of the living God, was your God, whom you continually serve, able to rescue you from the lions?" Daniel spoke to the king, "O king, live forever. My God sent his angel and closed the lions' mouths, so they have not harmed me, because I was found to be innocent before him." Innocent before God. Then the king was very pleased, of course, and he gave an order to haul Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was hauled up out of the den. He had no injury of any kind because he had trusted in his God, which is pretty amazing. The angel was sent to close the lions' mouths, and Daniel was not hurt at all. So the king sent a letter to his whole kingdom. He said this: "Peace and prosperity. I have issued a decree that throughout all my kingdom, people are to respect and fear the God of Daniel. For he is the living God. He endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His authority is forever. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions." Wow, King Darius here even knows about the kingdom. Somewhat. His kingdom, God's kingdom, will not be destroyed. God's kingdom will last forever. Unlike King Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom or King Darius or any other king, God's kingdom, when it comes in the future, will never be destroyed. It will last forever. What are the similarities between Daniel's account, and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Here's some that I thought of. Number one, both Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were told something that was against God. So Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were actually told to do something. They were told to bow down and worship a golden statue. That would have been wrong, clearly. Daniel was told not to do something. He was told not to pray to God, which is ridiculous. And of course, he didn't follow that. Okay, number two, both did the right thing, even if they would have to suffer for it. Remember, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, God can save us, but even if he doesn't, we're not going to bow down, and so we'll be thrown into the fire. And number three, of course, in both cases, God sent his angel and rescued them. So what can we learn from Daniel and Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego? Number one, always do the right thing, no matter what others around you are doing. Even if everyone around you is doing the wrong thing, you do the right thing. And of course, like Daniel, don't ever stop praying and giving thanks, of course, to God.